Okay, we are back, and we are now joined by none other than Carl Beijer. You may know him from Twitter at Carl Beijer, but he writes for the Baltimore Post-Examiner, and he is also an OG Bernie bro and veteran member of the Matt Bruenig election team. Carl, how you doing?
I'm doing great. It's good to be here. Good to meet you all and talk to you all in person
Or
after all of our over the years.
yes. Um,
Yeah.
so, Carl, the reason we wanted to have you on was I think you sort of first popped on my radar with this article you wrote back in 2014 that I came across and really loved because it was really funny. But basically, you wrote an article sort of in response to the sort of common idea or sort of common fantasy that plays itself out on TCOT Twitter about that of Second Amendment remedies to unconstitutional government, and this idea that anytime things don't go their way electorally, that they can always rely on the strength of their guns and numbers to sort of foment a kind of second civil war or sort of rehearsal or rehash of the American Revolution to get their way. And
Yeah.
again, I'm going to link to this piece in the description, but
Yeah.
you wrote a response to this called Militant Republicans, Nope, You Aren't Going to Overthrow the Government. And I was hoping you did this in response to something someone else wrote in the Baltimore Post-Examiner. So I was wondering if you sort of outline for us and the listeners, like what is the sort of most common scenario and fantasy that is invoked among TCOTs when they get their dander up?
Yeah. So I was responding to something a colleague at the BPE wrote, also about guns, and of course, as soon as he starts writing about the possibility of any kind of gun control, he gets spammed with billion TCOTs and Mullen Labe types in his comments, and pretty soon after that, they start planning out their plans to overthrow the federal government. And usually, I mean, it's pretty. They have a pretty standard formula. They start talking about how, if we can only, we don't need like some huge insurrection. All we need is like a very small fraction of the U.S. to form this guerrilla movement of, all the men with guns, and then inevitably all of the police will come join us because all of the police are our allies, and then all of the military will come join us because all of the military are our allies, and before you know it, Obama will be waving the white flag, and the second Civil War will be won. So that's the general scenario that he outlined in that one.
I mean, like, just to define our terms for a second, when we say TCOT, that refers to the top conservatives on Twitter. It's just sort of I guess the shorthand for all of the right-wing cranks that are on Twitter. That are like, it's the talk radio section of Twitter, but
Yeah.
it's
And
yeah. Go ahead.
Well, and then you have the Mullen Labe types, which is another hashtag they like to use, which I guess is Latin for like "come and take it" or something like
Yeah,
that.
it refers,
And
I believe, in I think it's Greek actually, because I think it refers to the part of the Persian War, famously dramatized by Zack Snyder in the film 300, where
and yeah, the Battle of Thermopylae, where the Spartans were up against the Persians at the Hot Gates, and
it was like the Persians said to throw down your weapons, and the brave Spartans said, "Come and take them."
yeah,
And that's what Molon Labe translates as. It means come and take them.
is this when they actually started saying that after 300?
yeah, of course.
I can't say. I don't know. I doubt the actual Greek phrase "molon labe" was said in the movie 300, but maybe "come and take them" was. I don't know. 300.
Oh, but I'm sure that's popular. I'm sure that's when they started thinking about it.
Yeah, 300 was really a foundational film in the right-wing imagination in this country. But again, this is something that sort of the right wing vacillates between absolute reverence for authority when they're in power and fantasies of the violent overthrow of the government when they're not. And a comment that I see over and over again, especially now in the second term of Obama, where they're, I think, really feeling a little bit disenfranchised, is they said, well, you know, say what you want, but our side is the one with all the guns. So, you know, laugh now, lib, but you know, all of you people in your snarky comments and coffee shops and college universities, you're not packing heat like we are. And that seems to be like the thing that animates them the most.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. They're under the impression that there's just sort of an entire. I mean, you hear this stuff mostly in the South, I think, but just sort of an entire insurgent movement waiting to come out at any given moment, and they're not. You know, they're all would-be Rambos. Like they're all fantasizing about. You had one guy in these comments talking about his plans for taking out a tank. And that kind of thing. Like they're all they all just have.
See,
I think
all you
I
gotta
forget
do
what
is you got a Diet Coke, and you put enough Mentos in there.
Roll it under the
shreds
treads.
right off of it.
Well, the great thing
You
was
want to
that
walk?
in that
You want to walk?
in that
You want to walk?
conversation-
You won't believe.
in that
No,
conversation,
literally, I won't believe it.
I started commenting under another name and started outlining the scenario for how I would take out a helicopter, but it was just the Dark Knight Rises, him putting that rope across the towers to take it down. I just started rehearsing that verbatim, and everybody there is like, yeah, I bet that would work. And then I come in the under name. You guys know I'm just doing like a Batman thing at this point, right? So
Yeah, but hold on a
it-
minute. The Nolan Batmans are notable for their incredible verisimilitude. They're very,
Yeah,
very
yeah.
real.
I mean,
yeah, that's true.
if you're facing down an Abrams tank and it's backed up by two F-16s, what you have to do is you have to get your guys and be like, hey, let's go like full power at them.
Yeah.
Like, let's just you know like believe in ourselves.
Oh yeah. You just gotta run up out of the ditch that you're hovering in, and you know be brave and shoot well. I guess I don't really
well,
do this strategy.
I mean, the thing is, like, you know, it sounds ridiculous, but like all of these things, there is a germ of truth in it. Like, or there's a germ of something that seems reasonable, which is this idea that it doesn't actually take that many people in a given population to to act as sort of a revolutionary force, and also that like necessarily the side with all of the money and guns and advanced weaponry doesn't necessarily always mean that you're going to win, right? And I think like an object lesson of that right now in current events is what is happening in Yemen right now between Saudi Arabia and the Houthi and Shia minority in Yemen right now. Like this is a real world example of a country that is backed by, you know, like the two of the richest powers in the world with all the best weapons are getting fought to a standstill by people who are fighting them basically with small arms and a few RPGs, right?
Absolutely. I mean, and that's that's how it played out in Iraq too, right? And that's how this is this is more or less the history of modern warfare at this point. This asymmetrical warfare where you have the U.S. usually or some other imperial power coming in with overwhelming force, and then you have the locals just kind of hunker down and win by attrition.
Yeah, and if you take the broader view, this fantasy isn't so insane because often it is said, well, you can't possibly hold out against the U.S. government just with a couple, with guns or whatever. But indeed, if you look at Afghanistan or Iraq and with some guns and improvised explosives, basically they did fight America to a standstill, right?
Yeah. Well, so here's where they're.
Here's where this whole idea breaks down if you examine it a little further.
Yeah.
And it depends entirely on who is actually doing the fighting.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, this is exactly, and this is where their whole thing just stops working because when you can win an asymmetrical war, but what happens is it just totally you do that by turning your entire place that you live into a battleground, and it just totally destroys it. And you're looking at just sort of massive casualties on both sides constantly. You have to have people who are willing to do the suicide bombings and, you know, that kind of thing. And the people who are gaming this out aren't the sort of desperate developing world, you know, emiserated, radicalized populace who have nothing to lose at this point. These are the overwhelming majority of these people are sort of aging, doughy, middle-class suburbanites who, you know, like their entire grievance here, the only reason they're upset in the first place is because they've been made to experience tiny little bits of discomfort, like infinitesimal tax raises and stuff like that. And so there's no reason to believe that they would ever be willing to endure anything like what they're planning out.
Yeah,
there is not a single member of the Houthi rebellion who has a regular table at a TGI Fridays.
Can I point out two things about the Houthis?
Go for it.
First key difference with the Houthis is they've been kind of under the gun for a number of years. They come from these Shia tribes in Yemen that have been on the odds with Sunnis in the country, and a lot of them are nomads, and they were only able to eat because they could shoot birds out of the sky. They're amazing shots, and they're happy to take, not happy to take casualties, but they're totally fine with taking casualties.
Yeah.
You know, compared to these people who have been sedentary for 8 years, as you've pointed out, but also there at least 300,000 are members of the Houthis. And you talked about the numbers game going into this in your article.
Yeah. So the guy I was responding to here was imagining, okay, well, what if we could get like even 0.03% of the population? So you're looking at like 100,000 people, and that's his starting point. And he's like, assume that we could get that many. But there's no reason to even assume that. They can never get anywhere near 100,000 Teacots to do anything at all. I don't know.
They were gonna blockade Washington, and like 3 dickheads showed up in a pickup truck and waved a Confederate flag around for the weekend, and then just knocked off and went to a strip club.
Carl, I'm actually gonna quote from you in this piece right now on exactly this issue. You say, quote, "So to paraphrase John Kenneth Galbraith, when a Republican fascist begins an argument, let us assume the correct response is let's not." Let's not assume that the militant right can build a credible guerrilla force from a demographic pool of aging, pampered civilians and a statistical handful of radicalized veteran defectors. Let's not just assume they can mobilize 100,000 combatants in an unusually pacified and disengaged body politic that hasn't seen insurrection approaching that magnitude since the Civil War.
These are like the two most recent examples I can think of these people trying to mobilize. There's the one that I think it was Matt mentioned, the blockade they tried to do on the Beltway, and I actually worked.
I'm sorry, was this the million truckers? They were the big convoy that was going to shut down all of the traffic coming in and out of the Beltway.
They're just going to block it off. And it's really funny because this is not like an implausible thing. Like, I'm sure you all saw just a couple of weeks ago some Bernie bros blocked off a Trump rally. Wouldn't let people get to the Trump rally. I forget where that was. It might have been in Nevada or something like that. So, I mean, it really only takes, especially if they're in tractor trailers, so many people to block off like a 4-lane road. But they couldn't even get that. I drove to work that day, and I just ran my camera to record it, and so there's this video on YouTube, me just driving circles around the Beltway, and you're passing there like I think there's 1 or 2 guys with the Gadsden flag on the back of their truck sort of driving around, but there weren't enough of them to block traffic, so everybody was just going past them. That's the one, and then the other one, I wrote an article about this, or I actually did a photojournal, was Operation American Spring.
Yeah, we're gonna link to that in the description. But yeah, it's so funny. It's so hard to keep all these things in mind. Like they happen, and then there were a lot of them, but they're all were eminently forgettable because nothing happened in any of them.
nothing. Operation American Spring was even worse because their whole thing is I mean, this was supposed to be a very threatening potential coup that they're talking about, and you know, they're like one of their little taglines that they were using is "Next time we'll come armed." So their original plan was they're just going to mob the National Mall with just numbers and just in this huge show of strength. So I was like, all right, I want to go see this, see what's happening. I go there, and it took me about an hour to find any of these people at all. And it was literally like less than a dozen, you know, exactly who you would think it is, like 200-300-pound, 50 to 60-year-olds standing around in brightly colored shirts, just kind of like being angry and wondering when they can get out to the Applebee's later on or something like that.
It's like 7 days in May. It's like 7 days in May, yeah, recast with the people from Duck Dynasty.
Carl brought up earlier that these are pampered people.
Yeah.
I swear this is the last time I'll bring up the Houthi comparison.
it's a perfect comparison.
You ain't no Houthis, bitch.
Yeah, but all right, so let's compare religious insults. The Houthis, they were involved in peace talks brokered by Ali al-Sistani, the spiritual leader of all Shia in Iraq, even though they're a different sect of Shia Islam with Saudi Arabia in 2010. And a very high-ranking Saudi cleric said that Sistani is an atheist, which, you know, very big insult to an ayatollah. But they followed this up by an attack on the capital in Yemen, where they killed 40 security forces. People got mad at Chick-fil-A because their owner didn't want gay marriage, and these people responded by eating more sandwiches.
You know what, though? Hey, you want to talk about how the Houthis are such good shots? Not one of them has the high score on Big Buck Hunter. Not a single one of them. At the local Dave & Buster's, these dudes rack up big. They hang around the Big Buck Hunter thing all night, waiting for a chick to pass by and watch them just rack up the kills. Just put them in a sniper's nest with some of Obungo's troops coming towards them. It's gonna be like Barry Pepper in Saving Private Ryan.
I would also like to say, let's see a Houthi dominated Candy Crush.
It's gonna be. I mean, no, it's like the first Metal Gear when you get that invisible armor or whatever, and they're just gonna be like sneaking around sniping everybody. Nobody's even gonna know I hit them. It's gonna be like a small elite force of like 3 or 4 of them.
You won't know that you're gonna be killed until you hear Luke Bryan.
It is amazing when you bring up the Chick-fil-A thing, because we talk about how pathetically bad they are at mobilizing people to actually show up in numbers and try to assert force, but they're fantastic at fucking gorging, which really does seem like it's the exact opposite skill set you want out of an elite force of guerrillas.
For an irregular army.
I mean, what did Mao?
Obama wouldn't even have to unleash the A-10 warthogs or anything. All he would have to do is like embargo like beef and fucking chicken tenders.
yeah. Obama would just have to say like, hey, I think it's homophobic to eat poop. Dysentery. I mean,
I don't know if they're doing this because they hate Obama. I think they're doing it because they really like Chick-fil-A. Like that's where so much that, like, if you look, they have their Chick-fil-A protest, they have their Papa John's protest. Like, the right has realized they can really mobilize people around fast food controversies.
I mean, what did Mao say? But the revolutionary is a minnow and the fast food joint is a pond.
But I mean, this is a point that I think that this is probably the key point that you make in your article, Carl, is that essentially if you are going to decide to engage in irregular warfare with a nation state, let alone the most powerful nation state in the history of the world, you are basically signing on to lose every single thing that you have every single person you know, your family, your friends, will almost certainly meet a terrible end. And the answer is that the people who are successful at this are people who essentially, from birth, have had nothing to lose.
Yeah,
The demographic that is most incensed about Obungler essentially has everything to lose.
Yeah, like if you look at the old Tea Party demographics, right? They're all just sort of like wealthy, college-educated, upper. Like there is this old liberal stereotype about how these were all sort of like mouth-breathing hicks or something like that.
We
but
talked
they
about
weren't.
this
The
on
guys,
an earlier episode.
yeah, like the guys who are into this are basically, like when they're showing their pictures of their guns on Twitter or whatever, like they're always sitting in the middle of some nice suburban house and using guns that they have they aren't going hunting with these things. Like these are just sort of prestige collections. I doubt they even bother shooting them very much. They're just kind of sitting in some cabinet in the garage or something like that, to show off to their other teacup buddies.
And again, I'm gonna quote you right now from the article. America's fascists aren't the rugged survivalist killing machines they make themselves out to be. They aren't the young, diverse, and relatively liberal demographic that makes up today's military and law enforcement personnel. They aren't the prime of their lives weekend warrior demographic targeted by sporting goods and fitness marketers. And they are decisively not the young black men who have by far more experience with gun violence, combat, and conflict with state authorities than any other group of Americans. Nope. American fascists are a lot less like John Rambo and a lot more like the surly dad on Wonder Years. They're the cranky, loudmouth oafs that AM talk radio targets with ads for Viagra and antacids. And when they start talking about their strategy for defeating a tank full of soldiers, all you can do is laugh.
I felt really bad. So just preparing for this a little, I decided to kind of check in on some of the guys who I was arguing with in the comments. And
by the way, they all had names like Diamondback and Jack Burton. So.
This is Leather Warrior 1 checking in from the rumpus room.
Oh yeah,
it's all in the reflexes, Jack.
From my wood-paneled command center.
Warrior Class 3 was another one of them.
And by the way, one thing that you really know about a hardcore guerrilla warrior is that he will accuse you of making logical fallacies in the comment section. And
that's what Patton yelled across the desert to Rommel. You proved my point, you son of a bitch! That's
oh,
exactly.
I read your book, Rommel, and that book was The Fountainhead by Ayn Rand.
Appeal to authority much, you Nazi son of a bitch!
So these, oh man, I forgot where I was going to go with the comment thread.
No,
you're checking in on them. What are they up to?
Oh, yeah. So I was checking in on these guys just to see like what they're up to these days, because they went on about this for a while, and some of them, there's one group in particular, they call themselves the Sipsey Street Irregulars, and evidently,
wait, where is this street? What street are they referring to here?
I don't know what that's a reference to, but evidently there's some kind of militia I believe they're based in Atlanta. These are the guys. I don't know if you remember when the Affordable Care Act passed and some Congress people had bricks thrown through their windows. Like that was these guys.
Okay.
So these guys.
They're the sons of liberty for the new generation.
Yeah. So if you dig through the comment section, you can see us sort of going at each other, and then they started posting all this stuff about me on their blog and started making death threats and stuff like that. And
I believe one of them.
Holy shit! Are you okay?
First of all, what the fuck?
Carl, I believe one of them called you. First of all, one guy kept going, blah, ha, 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 ha. He kept writing that, which is always the sign of that you're dealing with a dangerous mind.
People who love to think of themselves as comic book villains.
Yeah, would you want to face
Sober-minded.
Joker in a regular warfare? I thought not.
But I remember, Carl, one of them called you, he said, we don't need to worry about you. You're weak, physically and morally.
Yeah, because moral weakness has always been such a hindrance to military success.
Yeah, no, you've got to have valor, right, and loyalty and all that.
I'm gonna fucking steal it if you got valor, just so everyone knows. I'll steal your valor.
You can always steal valor.
On my way to steal your valor.
So I go to look into these guys and just see what they're up to these days, and it's really sad because the Sipsy Street Irregular guy, his blog has just devolved into like him endlessly detailing his health problems. And,
No, we shouldn't laugh at that.
It turns out that the real battle to be fought is the battle against type 2 diabetes.
Yeah.
Matt, you cut out there, but it was type 2 diabetes, and I'm just imagining Patton going around the Army hospital, and there's the guy in the corner sniffling, and he goes, "What's the matter with you, son? You look fine." And he goes, "Sir, it's my diabetes." He goes, "You little creep, you get out of here." He smacks him around.
No, I've got the gout. Please, sir.
My acid reflux.
I mean,
This is only going to get worse in the coming years, right? Because these people are like, if you look at the Tea Party demographics and stuff like that, like they're already averaging getting up to 60s in the 60s. Like, imagine how this is going to be like 20 years from now. Your average guy's 80, and then they're getting much older than them, and they're still sort of, you know. I had a guy today on a Twitter threatened to fly out to meet me. Like, are they still going to be able to get on the plane at that point?
Actually, that might be when they're most dangerous, because if they get old enough, they might like lose the will to live, and they could actually be effective suicide bombers. Like, you get some decrepit 80-year-old teacots, and you strap them full of plastic
you can fit a lot of
explosives,
scooters.
and you just put them in a rascal, and you like put a brick on the pedal, on the gas pedal, and send them into a police station or, you know, a congressman's office or something. It could happen.
I mean, Matt, I mean, compare these two credos. On the hand of the Shia martyrs of Lebanon, martyrdom is a gift from Allah that shows us that He loves us. To Kurd Carruthers, I'm fed up with liberals. You know, who's
I'm sick of gay people on TV.
Who's more likely to die for it?
No, and
They will die
the Islamic
only by giving. They will die for it, but only by giving themselves arterial sclerosis through spite-filled fast food adventures.
Well, I think you've defeated my argument here, Matt. Like, I hadn't really thought of the sort of aging, lost the will to live, going to go out with a bang faction at all.
Yeah, well, it's all a question of whether they have like a young. If they're able to get one of their children who doesn't hate them to like help them strap the bomb on, then they'll be dangerous. But if they, as likely, have alienated all of their children and they put them in a home so they don't have to deal with them, then they probably won't be able to do it.
Yeah.
Carl, one thing that I quoted, it's a little counterintuitive, but earlier when you said this demographic isn't the young, diverse, and relatively liberal demographic that makes up, I think a lot of people make sort of a very conservative culture, but like, is that the case? Because in the military, probably half of them voted for Obama in 2008, right?
Well, you're actually going out here.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I got screwed.
No,
he's basically asking about whether, like, how quote unquote like liberal-minded is the military as a demographic.
Oh yeah.
He's saying like about half of them voted for Obama.
Yeah, no, this is another example of how old these people are, right? Because they're thinking of like the 50s era military or the 60s era military, but you know the military since then has become remarkably more diverse. It's poorer. than it used to be. Like basically every single sort of more women. Like every single major democratic demographic has gained significantly in representation in the military over the last couple of decades. I believe now, especially, like, one difficulty they run into is as you move up the ranks, and yeah, you get like sort of the usual older white men who've been there forever, and they lean more conservative, but they're always appealing to, we've got all these shock troops and ground troops who are just willing to do all that. And when you're just looking at the rank and file, like, these skew disproportionately liberal compared to the rest of the military. So that one really sticks with them because they're such military fetishists that when you start pushing back and saying, actually, I don't think they're going to be jumping in to help you out, it's the worst thing that they can possibly hear. You there?
Guys.
Oh, how many of them are really, how many of these people in the military, because yeah, I'm sure that among the rank and file in the military there's plenty of conservative-leaning people and even outright reactionaries, but how many of them, when Horkus McGillicuddy raises the Gadsden flag over, the occupied city hall of Blumpus, Arkansas, how many of them are going to feel the urge in their heart to defect versus the ones who are going to be like, who's this asshole, and just fucking immediately smoke them?
Yeah, there's always this. They always start fantasizing about this snowball effect, right? And they'll often even just use that phrase where they just assume, yeah, we're going to get like one or two guys there, and then suddenly there's going to be thousands upon thousands of soldiers pouring in. No, that's not the way it works. Like, you've seen the way it works in some of these military standoffs and stuff like that. We haven't had soldiers defecting when there's these standoffs with militias or that kind of situation. It's just assumed that these guys are crazy and they're going to follow orders and take care of them.
I'm sure there were plenty of reactionary people who they'll probably vote for Trump or Cruz, who were manning the Bundy compound, and none of them turned around and pointed their guns at their comrades.
Yeah.
I mean, that's Carl also brought up a really good point about how diverse the military is now, like both class and ethnically. I mean, there is a disproportional amount of people from Puerto Rico in the military. I'm not necessarily sure how they're going to react to people whose battle cry is that, like, it's genocide to have Dora the Explorer on TV.
That's the thing.